Ed is an interesting story. His house is located on 1st Street South. I forget what block number it is. His house is behind the St. Paul Lutheran Church. Not the real little one, but the one next to it. And right there was the Presbyterian church. And it had been empty for many years. And Ed will buy the church and that property, tear the church down, and use the wood from the church to build his house. That would have been around 1917. So the house is holy land, if you will. And the sidewalk that runs in front of their house was all privately put in by the Sedelkas. And the Logans lived in a little house on the corner. They were original people to Royalton, and they put theirs in, and the church had put the sidewalk in front of their building. Across the street, that sidewalk also has all been privately put in by the people that lived in those houses at that time in the 1920s and 30s. That is original street. That was supposed to be Main Street. When Mr. Logan came here in the 1880s, he bought from Center Street south to the river by Dairy Queen and across the railroad tracks, and declared that Royalton had plotted it all off, and went to Little Falls and filed a claim. A man by the name of Green, a few years earlier, had taken everything north of Center Street and to the river and plotted that and said that's Royalton. But Mr. Logan pointed out that it had not been filed in the courthouse, so it was not recognized. So there was a little argument about what was going to happen with it. And originally it did start out that Main Street was 1st Street South, but eventually more people came to town, arguments got put up, and Center Street became Center Street. And that was Logan Street. He got it. That had businesses on it. Where the houses, some of the houses was our original dance hall. It was a rounded building, and then they picked it up, turned it around, and put it kind of where the flower shop is now. And that will burn down in 1945 in January. And the fire was so intense that it cracked the windows across the street in the bar. It was a chimney fire. And the story goes that the young man who was starting up the furnace that had just been put in a year before came across. There was no bathrooms there, so there's no water in the building. He comes across the street to the bar and asks for a pail of water. Why? I have a fire. What do you mean a fire? Don't worry about it. Just give me a pail of water. He goes back. He comes back for another pail of water. What is going on? Well, by that time, it's too late. It is an old building from the 1890s. It's made of wood, and it's gone. And it will burn for hours. And it's very, very cold. It's January. And we will lose it. And next to it, to the east, is called Litchie's Machine Shop. And they have men that are working in there unbeknownst that there's a fire going on. And they get them out, and we will lose 2 businesses that night. For many years, nothing will be done because it's the war, and there are no building materials. So then, by 1947, we can't get concrete, we can't get steel, we can't get wood, but we can get a Quonset. And so where we have Luann's Discount Liquor Store now became the new dance hall civic center we have, because in the old one we showed movies, we had wedding dances, all parties went on there, elections went on there, and so then we used that building. Well, the town couldn't keep it up, and so the American Legion guys took over the building a few years later and continued the tradition of showing movies at Christmas time for children, where 300, 400, 500 children would come, and at the end would get a bag of peanuts and candy. And then eventually the Legion in 1995 will move out of town, north of town, and then Luann and Mark Schrout will buy it and turn it into the business that it is today.